Sales of electric vehicles surge as car dealers have their best month in 5 years. Parliament returns with the labour market and cost of living the main focus of debate, and Dan Murphy's novel way of finding 2,200 staff. It's Tuesday, the 6th of September 2022. Welcome to Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael. Now, I'm sure you're pretty excited because our listeners might not know, but you're about to disappear for a week.
Yes. Yeah, I'm about to. We're about to head off to Fiji, which will be fantastic. And after a little battle with the passport office, which I think is fairly common for pretty much anyone heading overseas at the moment, we are pretty well set to go. We've got one more day, and then we're off.
Jetting off to Fiji, and Adam Lang, of course, will be stepping in your place. Just quietly, I'm quite looking forward to doing some work with Adam. No disrespect, Michael. No disrespect.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. It's just kind of putting me on notice, really, isn't it?
That's right.
I've got to put in a good performance today and tomorrow, or else there may not be a job for me when I return.
What a great thing to do. And the great thing about having kids who are a bit younger too, you can take it and sort of, well, your youngest isn't at school, but your youngest is only in kindergarten. You can go on a holiday during the non-school holiday period. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I think when we booked it in, we didn't realise that it wasn't school holidays because we're just so used to not having to take into account that. And then all of a sudden we booked in a little trip to the snow and then a trip to Fiji. And then we're like, hang on, we have to do this in school holidays next year. Next year we'll start the school holidays thing. So,
indeed.
Anyway, we have plenty to talk about. Your interview today is really all about kind of the high-tech future of mining, isn't it? You're talking to Andrew Jobb, the CEO of mining tech company PlotLogic.
That's right. You don't really think about miners as being particularly high-tech, but increasingly they are, and particularly in the case of PlotLogic, actually finding what's under the earth using data and using science and using technology as opposed to just going and digging it up. Really fascinating chat with Andrew. Yeah,
it's a good one. It's coming up a little bit later on, but the main story this morning, Sean, I love this story. Car buyers are back. New vehicle sales in August hit the highest monthly level in 5 years. And how about this? Electric vehicle sales hit a record level as well.
That's right. 4.4% of vehicles sold last month were electric, according to the Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries. That's easily a record for a month. In fact, the Tesla Model 3 was the number 4 selling vehicle across the entire market. In total, 95,256 vehicles were sold last month, up 17% from a year ago. So far this year, more than 717,000 vehicles have been offloaded. There are two main factors behind the good number. The economy is holding up really well and the supply of vehicles is improving. The Reserve Bank of Australia has already forced interest rates higher and it's expected to lift the official cash rate again today, but that hasn't hurt demand, with dealerships reporting fantastic customer inquiries. The number 1 selling vehicle was the tradies' friend, the Toyota Hilux Ute, as per usual, then the Ford Ranger, followed by the Toyota RAV4 SUV.
All right, let's talk about EVs though. What's happening in the EV market?
Well, as I mentioned, Tesla came in at number 4 among the most popular sellers. If you take out the Ute, so that's a Toyota Hilux and the Ford Ranger, so just in terms of passenger vehicles, it's now second behind Toyota RAV4.
Oh, wow.
Pretty incredible, really. It sold 3,397 vehicles. Tesla and other electric vehicle manufacturers have been favouring Northern Hemisphere markets, but the August figures show an improvement in the supply chain and availability of plug-in cars locally. EV sales are normally around 2% of the total market, so the 4.4% I mentioned is a really big jump. Now, hybrids comprise about 7.6%, while plug-in hybrid vehicles are 0.6%. So combined, electrified vehicles are now just over 10% of total sales. Pretty incredible. And given the push towards EVs via incentives and other programs that governments will introduce, and of course the rollout of infrastructure, that number will only grow.
Yeah. Oh, look, it certainly seems that way, Sean. Mentioning the Hilux and the Ford Ranger, one of my goals in life is still to own a dual cab ute. I have no purpose for it. Maybe put the kids' bikes in the back, but God, I think that'd make me tough.
No, Michael, nothing's going to make you tough. Sorry.
Oh,
I know what you mean, but I just look totally stupid in one.
Yeah. The two of us would look very out of place.
Absolutely.
In dual cabs, wouldn't we? Anyway.
We would.
All right. How about local markets? What happened yesterday?
The S&P ASX 200 was up just a touch to finish at 6,842 points. The coal companies were the standouts. More on them shortly. Uranium group Paladin Energy also did well, up more than 6%. Mind you, most of the miners did well, particularly the energy companies. Woodside rose more than 4%, while South32 closed up 3.6%. Santos jumped more than 3%. BHP was up 2.7%, and Rio Tinto closed up 2%. The major banks were all lower, while Goodman Group fell 2% and Wesfarmers and Telstra both dropped more than 1%. Biotech Imugene was the worst performer on the day, down more than 7%.
And what about international markets?
Well, oil prices have risen on the possibility that OPEC Plus, which is the cartel of oil-producing countries, might decide to trim production. While prices were down more than 5% last week, Brent crude is back trading above $95 a barrel. Also yesterday, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the halving of the fuel excise won't be extended beyond September. Now, that'll add about 22 cents a litre to the price of petrol. So, if oil prices keep rising and the excise is increased, we could easily be back to nearly $2 a litre in a few weeks' time. Not so good. The Aussie dollar is under pressure also, falling below 68 US cents. It's suffering from the popularity of the US dollar, which is considered a safe haven in uncertain times. And of course, Wall Street was closed last night for the Labor Day holiday.
All right, we'll be back in a moment with the rest of the day's business news. Sean, Parliament was back in session yesterday, but even before the pollies actually entered the building, there was plenty of debate around multi-employer bargaining and whether the government would make it compulsory.
And that's really the critical question for business. Yesterday, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was leaving all options open, saying the government would have further discussions about compulsion. Multi-employer bargaining will allow a union to negotiate with several companies in an industry at the same time, rather than on a company-by-company basis. Now, business is worried they'll be forced into such arrangements. For its part, the federal opposition said it will fight any legislation that makes multi-employer bargaining compulsory, with opposition Treasury spokesperson Angus Taylor saying it will add fuel to the inflation fire.
Okay, so what happened in Parliament then yesterday?
Well, question time included all the normal argy-bargy. A lot of it was around multi-employer bargaining, the skills crisis and the industrial relations system. Treasurer Jim Chalmers warned that rate increases, which are likely today, will add to the cost of living pain for Australians. There are also lovely tributes from Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton for former Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev, who of course died last week.
And just before we leave Canberra, Sean, Newspoll shows that support for the coalition has fallen to 31% and Labor's two-party preferred lead is now 57 to 43.
It's all a bit arbitrary because it's a long time until the next election, but it does highlight what a golden run Anthony Albanese's government has had. It also shows that opposition leader Peter Dutton really needs to do something quickly to improve his image in the electorate. The primary vote for the coalition of 31% is equal to the lowest on record, down nearly 5 points from its May election loss, according to The Australian. Anthony Albanese's preferred Prime Minister rating is 61%. Mr. Dutton is just 22%.
Oh, ouch. Now, Sean, I can't imagine you got much sleep last night because you always have a pretty excited night before the Reserve Bank board meets. And then you've got another big day tomorrow with the official economic growth figures out. It is certainly a very big week for economists. One part of the economy that's flying is the labour market, isn't it?
Sure is. The ANZ Job Ads series jumped another 2% last month, bettering its peak back in March. There's no sign that the labour market is faltering, and that must feed through to higher wages at some point, which of course will fuel inflation and interest rates. Now, the Reserve Bank Board meets this morning. It announces its decision on rates at 2:30 p.m. The smart money is on yet another 50 basis point hike. Of course, we'll have all that news in our afternoon report.
Oh, we certainly will. Now, Victoria's Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, believes that Australia faces a wave of COVID-19 cases, hospitalisations and deaths in the next 3 to 4 months, even if no new variant emerges.
That's right. He warned that it could be a repeat of the winter wave, which of course occurred in July. Professor Sutton's advice says that 3/4 of Victorians will have been infected by COVID at some point by the end of October this year. Now, in younger age groups, the number is closer to 90%. Quite incredible, that. And in older age groups, it's about 50%. Also, a new parliamentary inquiry will investigate the impact of long COVID on Australians and the broader health system. The point about all this, the numbers are waning somewhat compared to the middle of winter, but we are not over the pandemic. We will still have thousands and thousands of cases every day.
All right. Now, we've talked a lot lately, Sean, about the coal companies, and they are really soaring with the sector surging yesterday.
It's quite astonishing that they just keep going. As I've said before, the three biggest pure coal plays, Whitehaven, New Hope and Yancoal, are three of the four best performing companies on the ASX. Whitehaven's up 200% over the past year, including 6.5% yesterday. Yancoal's up 165%. New Hope is up almost 140%. Really, really incredible. Clearly, the war in Ukraine is supporting coal prices as buyers, particularly in Europe, look beyond Russia for supplies. I find it fascinating. 12 months ago, coal was almost a dirty word. Now people can't get enough of it.
Yeah, and new figures from the Bureau of Statistics show just how well miners in general, including obviously the coal miners, are doing.
They're making more money, or the miners are making more money than everyone else combined, with the resources sector posting a record $81 billion in quarterly profits in June. Now, of course, that reflects soaring commodity prices. Gross operating profits are up more than 50% on a year ago and not far off double pre-COVID levels. Quite incredible. One sector not doing so well, though, is construction, with profits lower during the June quarter. The finance and insurance sector is also finding things tougher.
Okay, now I mentioned this one at the top of the show, Sean, a novel idea from liquor chain Dan Murphy's. The group wants to find 2,200 people to fill positions in its 258 stores. And so anyone that walks in, is over the age of 18 and is interested in a job is guaranteed an instant interview with a store manager.
That's right, on the spot. The 10-minute interview will allow the manager to size up the applicant and cut out much of the bureaucracy and form filling that can delay applications. Managers will be looking for the right customer service skills, apparently, and a positive attitude. Don't we all want that?
Yes, we do.
We do. If candidates pass a 10-minute chat, then they'll have to do the form filling, but at least it will siphon off people who aren't ever going to get the job. I just think it's an ingenious way to do it. It started yesterday, runs till Sunday. Dan Murphy is calling it hiring week, and it's hoping to fill vacancies in the run-up to Christmas. But what an innovative way for a retailer to find staff.
Yeah, it sure is. Tell me, should I be reading anything into the fact that you started this podcast by saying how much you're looking forward to me taking a few days off and that Adam Lang may do such a good job that I may not be needed back? And then you slip in this story about recruitment at Dan Murphy's. Should I be joining these dots?
No, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. Move on.
All right, I'll just go away on my holiday and not think about it then. All right, moving on to overseas news and a really tragic story, Sean, that's come out of New York. The chief financial officer of meme stock Bed Bath & Beyond has taken his own life days after the retailer said it was closing stores and laying off workers.
52-year-old Gustavo Arnold had been with Bed Bath & Beyond since 2020 and previously was with Avon. The company's faltered in recent times as it pushed into selling more of its own brands. Now, last week, Bed Bath & Beyond said it would close 150 stores, cut jobs and overhaul its merchandising strategy. Last month, according to Reuters, Arnold and major shareholder Ryan Cohen were sued over accusations of artificially inflating the firm's stock price in a pump and dump scheme, with the lawsuit alleging Arnold sold off his shares at a higher price after the scheme. I hasten to add, this class action lawsuit hasn't been tried, so it's just an allegation at this point. Certainly Arnold was one of the defendants in it. It was bought by a group of shareholders who claimed they lost about $1.2 billion. It's a very, very sad story that Mr. Arnold took his own life.
Yeah, it sure is. Now, New Zealand, Sean, is about to launch direct flights to New York, and Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern is going to be aboard the first one, which is scheduled for the 17th of September.
So the 16-hour flight will be one of the longest direct routes in aviation, and part of the goal is to boost tourism in New Zealand. Now, pre-pandemic, tourism was one of New Zealand's biggest exports, and the US was the third largest source of foreign visitors, worth about 1.5 billion New Zealand annually. 16 hours is Auckland to New York, but New York to Auckland is actually 17 and a half hours. Now, the longest flight is Singapore, New York. That's 18 hours, 40 minutes. What I think here, and I have a vested interest in this because I have actually booked one of these flights for November, you throw in 3 hours from the east coast of Australia to Auckland, a couple of hours layover. I think the flight we're taking, Sydney to New York, is just a little over 21 hours, which is by far the fastest I've ever taken over there.
Wow. And what about coming back?
Yes, we add a couple of hours in that one. Still, 23 hours to New York isn't too bad.
Yeah, you would expect it to be faster coming back because it's downhill.
Yeah, moving on.
All right. And finally, the German government, Sean, will impose a windfall tax on electricity producers and use the proceeds to finance a new 65 billion euro package of relief measures to soften the blow of soaring inflation and higher energy bills.
This is the story local energy companies won't want to hear. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said the government would impose a cap on the profits of energy producers that generate electricity from wind, solar, biomass, coal and nuclear because they're making excessive profits. Now, proceeds from the tax will go towards an electricity price break, allowing private households to enjoy a basic volume of electricity at reduced prices. It's the third and largest package announced by Mr. Scholz's coalition. Of course, it's in response to the energy crisis. There have been murmurings about putting on some super profit tax on the energy companies here. Haven't done it yet, but this is exactly what Germany's doing.
All right. Up next is the Fear and Greed Daily interview. And today, Sean, you're speaking with Andrew Jobb, the CEO of mining tech company PlotLogic.
It's a very mining-focused day, isn't it, really? Coal mines, profits and all that. Yes, Andrew's very interesting to chat to. We went into the kind of details about how his company PlotLogic helps miners find deposits and basically makes the whole process, mining process, more efficient.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting one, basically looking to the future of the industry. So that's coming up next in the Fear and Greed playlist on your podcast platform or at fearandgreed.com.au. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
It's Tuesday, the 6th of September, 2022. Make sure you're following the podcast and join us online on LinkedIn, Twitter and Facebook. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was Fear and Greed. Have a great day.